Hello students. As yesterday we have discussed with wave. So let's start with wave today. So wave means we know that it's the periodic disturbance in a medium. It's called wave. So in that we have gone through with types of wave, isn't it? So types of wave we have mechanical and electromagnetic wave. So among these two, let's study in detail about waves. So in order, mechanical wave means it is that wave which needs a medium to travel. Okay, it is simple. Mechanical wave means it is that wave which needs a medium to travel. Okay, for example, it is sound wave. And then we have electromagnetic wave. Electromagnetic wave means it is that wave which can travel through a medium as well as through the vacuum. So what happens here? Electromagnetic wave andre it is that wave which can travel through a medium as well as through vacuum. In both it can travel. For example, I have taken as light here, and for mechanical wave it is sound wave. So in order to learn very easily, okay, let's understand in the simplest manner. Let me write it as wave here. Okay, so wave. Under wave we have two types, that is electromagnetic wave. Okay, I'll write it as EMW, that is electromagnetic wave, and here I'll write it as mechanical. Okay, MECH means mechanical wave. So in order to learn very easily, okay, in order to learn very easily, electromagnetic wave means where it can pass through medium. Okay, it can pass through medium or air, light or water, H2O. I'll write it as H2O, that means water, or even it can travel in vacuum. Okay, so electromagnetic wave is that which can pass through medium or light, air or water, or even in vacuum. For example, taken as light. Okay, light passes through bulb where the bulb glass over will be there, right? So it can pass through. So similarly, let us try to understand with mechanical. So mechanical is that where it pass through required medium. Okay, it pass through required medium. Got it? So they doesn't travel through vacuum. Okay, what happens here? Mechanical wave doesn't travel through vacuum. So it doesn't travel through vacuum. So in order to understand, okay, what we can see or what we can learn is that, I hope you children got an idea now. Wave means it is that electromagnetic wave can pass through medium, air, light or water. Vacuum, it even travels through vacuum, whereas example is light, whereas mechanical is that it pass through required medium. Okay, yav required medium irthe adral matra agutte, and it does not pass through vacuum. Okay, let's try to understand now. So let me write it as wave again. So that is EMW, electromagnetic wave. So it can pass through medium as well as vacuum, where here mechanical wave does not, it passes through medium but does not, I'll write it as doesn't. Okay, so does not pass through vacuum. Got it, children? So this is the very simplest form to understand. When wave travels, it ripples, isn't it? When wave travels, it ripples. It vibrates at certain point. How alva? What happens? It vibrates at certain point. So vibrations occur at, when it ripples, it vibrates, obviously, isn't it? So let's try to understand in again. So when a wave travels, okay, when wave vibrates, what happened? Let me write it as wave. When it vibrates, what happens? It vibrates in two forms. First one is transverse wave and another one is longitudinal wave. Okay, so transverse and longitudinal wave. So let's understand what do we mean by longitudinal. Okay, where particles will be there. Particles at rest. At rest, what happens? Vibrates. Okay, particles at rest vibrates. When it vibrates, how does it vibrates? It vibrates sideways. Okay, it vibrates sideways. ಹಿಂಗೆ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಈ ಥರ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Okay, particles at rest vibrates sideways, so that we can call it as to and fro. Okay, sideways ಆಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಎಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ? to and fro ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. Sound is a longitudinal wave. So let us write it as sound is a longitudinal wave. Okay, so now I hope you children got an idea. Particles at rest vibrates. How does it vibrates? Longitudinal and this sideways agate. To and fro we can call it as very easily. Okay, so transverse means what? Transverse means that at rest the particles vibrates. Let me write it as particles at rest vibrates as up and down. Okay, upper and lower, mele kelgade agutte. Okay, that we call it as transfer. So it transfers as up and downwards. That we can call it as transverse. Where for the example for transverse wave we can call it as, take it as light. Light is a transverse wave. Light is a transverse wave. Very easy. I hope you children got an idea now. So in wave, when it vibrates, okay, when wave travels, it ripples. Howda alva? When it ripples, what happens? It vibrates at certain point. How does it vibrate? It vibrates in two forms. One is transverse and another is longitudinal. So transverse means that particles at rest vibrates. How does it vibrates? Up and down. Mele kelgade vibrate agate. Okay, that is example is light is a transverse wave. Similarly, going for longitudinal. Okay, what happens in longitudinal? Particles at rest vibrates. How does it vibrates? It vibrates sideways. So that we call it as to and fro. Okay, to and fro we call it as. Sound is a longitudinal wave. So now let us try to understand very easily and in the simplest manner. Okay, so longitudinal is that, longitudinal means it is that wave in which particles vibrate to and fro. Okay, particle is that it vibrates to and fro. So let's try to understand. Example, spring will take. Okay, children, it's better you guys understand like this. Okay, it's that wave in which particles vibrate to and fro, and transverse wave is that wave in which the particles vibrates up and down. Got it? Let me explain. So example, we have taken spring here. Okay, taken example as spring. So let me write it as, so spring ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, certain time ಅಲ್ಲಿ we can expand, sometimes it releases. Longitudinal wave is of two regions. Okay, longitudinal wave is of two regions. So it is of okay, it's like this. When it is far, When it is far, we call it as rare refraction. Rare fraction. Okay, we call it as rare fraction. When it is particles are closed. Okay, when particles are closed, what happens? We call it as compressed. Compressed anta kariತೀವಿ. ಅದು ದೂರ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ರೇರ್ ಫ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಲಾಂಗಿಟ್ಯೂಡಿನಲ್ ವೇವ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಂಪ್ರೆಷನ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ರೇರ್ ಫ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್. ವಿಲ್ ರೈಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ longitudinal wave consists of compression and rare fraction. Okay, rare fraction. Children got an idea now? So ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, when it is far we call it as rare fraction, when the particles are closed we call it as compressed. And moving on to transverse wave. So what happens in transverse wave? It is that wave in which the particles vibrates up and down. We know this. So it represents as in structure it's like this. Okay, so one complete, what we call it as here, when this completes we call it as rest, where this is the mean part. This is the mean part. Maximum upper side we call it as, so what happens, maximum at upper side we call it as crest. Okay, so maximum at down, what we call it as, we call it as trough. This is very important, children. You need to understand that maximum at upper side we call it as crest and maximum at lower side we call it as trough. At one transverse wave we have one crest and one trough. Okay, one transverse wave alli ಏನು ಇರುತ್ತೆ, this full completes a transverse wave. So in one transverse wave we can call it as one crest and one trough. Okay, transverse wave is of one crest and one trough. ಒಂದು ಇದಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಒಂದು ಇದಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಆವಾಗಲೇ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ಸ್ ವೇವ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮಮ್ ಅಟ್ ಅಪ್ಪರ್ ಕ್ರಸ್ಟ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ತುಂಬ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮಮ್ ಅಟ್ ಅಪ್ಪರ್ ಕ್ರಸ್ಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಅದನ್ನು ಎಲಿವೇಶನ್ ಅಂತಲೂ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಓಕೆ, ವಿ ಇವನ್ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಎಲಿವೇಶನ್. ಸೊ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮಮ್ ಅಟ್ ಡೌನ್ ಸೈಡ್, ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಟ್ರಫ್, ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಡಿಪ್ರೆಷನ್. This is the way that we call it as. Okay, depression and down we call it as trough. Okay, let me try to represent this. So in order to represent, while representing, so what happens, everything will be far away. Okay, ಎಲ್ಲದು ಏನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, far away ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So transverse wave, let's write it as transverse wave consists of, so what happens, transverse wave we know that it consists of crest and trough, isn't it? ಹೌದು ಅಲ್ವಾ? It consists of crest and trough. ಸೊ ಕ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ನ ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಎಲಿವೇಶನ್. ಓಕೆ, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಟ್ರಫ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ depression. Okay, so transverse wave consists of crest and trough. Crest means elevation, trough means depression. So it's easy to understand that longitudinal wave and transverse wave. Got it, children? Now I hope you children got an idea with transverse and longitudinal. So let me write it as sound is a So sound is a kind of longitudinal wave and a mechanical wave. And here when it comes for light, light is an electromagnetic and transverse wave. Okay, simple as that, children. So sound is a kind of longitudinal wave and a mechanical wave, where light is a electromagnetic and transverse wave. Thank you.